Hi, my name is Michelle Scally-Doylney, and I am here today with Tara. Tara, I would love for you to give us some information about your school name, where you're located, and we can just move right into your story.
Beautiful. I'm really happy to be here today with you, Michelle. In 1996, I founded the Western School of Feng Shui. It is Form School based, and it honors the Eastern roots of Feng Shui, of course, but definitely focuses on the types of information and skill sets that are very practical and produce really good results in our Western culture. And I am currently living in Florence, Oregon, and the program, my certification training, the Essential Feng Shui certification training, is online, and it's also available live from time to time and on Zoom.
Wonderful. You've got that combo of the live connection and the ability to be online, to be able to reach people and be more available. Um,
I really found that as years went by, that more and more people were wishing that they could study at home while staying connected to their teachers, their comrades who they were studying with. So we came up with a combination like that where people can study online and they can go at their own pace. I'm very happy with that because some people need to go right on through it and some people need to take quite a bit of time. But what we do is we support it with live coaching calls and a forum that people can get on anytime, 24/7, and be connected. I really feel that feng shui is a subject that is not to be learned from a satellite. We
yeah.
need to have people really be able to connect and collaborate and learn from each other. So that's the combination that it seems to work really well for us. People enjoy both the liberty of going at their own pace and not going through a marathon necessarily, but also being connected. And our graduates a lot of times come to the coaching calls also because we talk shop. And as you know, there's a language in feng shui that is its own.
Yeah.
And I can't just necessarily go for tea with somebody and start to talk about the Bagua map or the five elements or chi flow. And they're like, okay, because it's our own language.
Mm.
So it's beautiful to connect regularly live and in person.
Yeah, that's great. So with your program, it really is a continuing, people who might be starting off, people with some experience, and people who have been doing the work for a long time, all able to stay connected after they've finished their training.
Yes, and I find that that is one of the most precious parts of it. People being able to stay warm in the use of the language and in sharing experiences.
Yeah, yeah. Well, tell us a little bit more about Western school, your school and feng shui, and if you want, the story of how you found feng shui.
Well, the story of how I found feng shui, I feel is, well, it's quite a romp. Okay,
Love that.
and I thought about it because you had let me know that you might ask me that question,
Yeah.
and I want to just say very briefly that I was in tune with what was going to happen as a kid
Mm.
because I realized as a young teenager that I was not going to have children and that I was going to be somehow very involved with joyful education.
Mm.
And neither one of those made much sense to me at the moment that I had that knowing, but that has carried through. And with hindsight, I can see why. Because if I had had children, I'm not sure I could have had this school because it became such a full time occupation and really took over my life for almost 20 years. So, that being said, as a young adult, I became a polarity therapist in Washington, D.C., where I grew up. And I founded a school there, the International not Feng Shui, the Polarity Institute of Washington, D.C. And I taught there and practiced there. And then I decided to move to California. So it was a big dream of mine to move to California. I'd wanted to do that for years. I accomplished that. And when I arrived, I decided I am not going to reestablish a practice in polarity therapy. I'm going to wait and see what's next. So I did. I waited, and as it turned out, shortly after I made that decision and had moved, a new friend said, "I want to take you to a lecture on Feng Shui." And I said, "Oh God, I've tried to learn Feng Shui and it's way too complicated for me." And she goes, "Look, I have this feeling you're supposed to be there. I'm going to pick you up. I'm going to pay your way in. You're coming with me." So I heard that and I went, "Oh, okay." So I did. And there's Dr. Richard Tan, and he's deceased now, but he was a Taiwanese acupuncturist, teacher, and a feng shui expert. And he was talking that night about feng shui. And as he talked about it, he began to relate to feng shui like it was an environmental body, that it was a body of knowledge that recognized the aliveness of our environments, just like we recognize the aliveness of our physical bodies. When he said that, I had an epiphany, and I realized this was what I was waiting for. I was really sitting in the presence of my future. So I took all of his classes and I was on fire like I had never been before. And that being on fire was a beautiful experience, because everything before that had been fine, but it had not really gotten to the heart of my passion. And so I went into practice as soon as I possibly could. I began to lecture on feng shui for free in libraries and massage schools and art galleries. And one night, I was talking with a very small group of people, 5 people. And one of those 5 people was Louise Hay, who is the founder of Hay House. She fell in love with feng shui instantly. She asked me to come and work with her home. I did. We became friends. And we also became gardening buddies. So she had an old pickup, and we would plunk ourselves into this pickup with our shovels in the back and go far afield and get organic soil and worm castings. And I would tell her stories about my experiences of feng shui as we were driving around. So one day she stops me in the middle of the story and she goes, "Are you writing this stuff down?" And I said, "No, but it's all in my head." And she says, "Oh, nope, 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 you've got to write this down." So the next morning she called and said, "Hey, I am going to publish a book on feng shui and you have first crack at it. Yes or no?" And I go, "Yes."
Yes.
So I had never written a book. I'd never thought about writing a book. But what she said is the book should be the stories you've been telling me, the befores and afters, and what happened, and what kind of tools I was using, and the responses that people were having. So I wrote the book, The Western Guide to Feng Shui. And absolutely surprised to everybody, it became a bestseller. Her publishing company was as surprised as I was. I think that it happened because I was so really wanting for the information in that book to be practical and to be understandable and applicable without a lot of complication also given. So that fueled then a host of human beings coming to me and saying, "We want to learn practitioner level feng shui." So then my next duty was to write the coursework based on my studies with Dr. Tan, my experiences in the field, and a few other feng shui teachers that I had the opportunity to study with. And that's where the school got started, was me just making it happen that a practitioner level course would come into being and people would be able to come. So it was live, it was always live. And that went for 16 years. Live trainings were 4 or 5 times a year. And then I put it online. We were all getting a little tired. And then it has just progressed from that point forward.
Oh, thank you. I talk about environmental body and how
Yes.
you were to your own sense of that, and then can turn around and offer that to so many, whether it's the book, the courses, how you train people who go back out into the world with that perspective. Yeah.
Yes.
One of the other questions, what is your proudest accomplishment? I'm wondering if you've already spoken of that or if there's something else besides this amazing creation.
Well, I think of two things. First of all, before I discovered feng shui, I was so shy, and being a public speaker would literally make me feel physically ill. It
Mm.
was a real issue for me. And when I discovered feng shui, it just hit me out of that whole shyness. It put me in the place where I wanted so much to share this extraordinary body of information that I was able to let that go to the point where I could move forward and do a lot of the work that then unfolded, like going around the world and lecturing and that sort of thing, which would have been completely undoable for me if I hadn't had that passion fueling me. The other thing is that I by nature am pretty watery, and I like to flow, and I don't really like to have a lot to do or a big schedule. And for the better part of 20 years, I had to be absolutely on point with deadlines and dedicated to getting another 5 books written, to
Mm.
keeping the school in order, to be writing the newsletters, to do advanced trainings, just so much um, binding myself into a role to get that work done. And I used to call it was like eating spaghetti every single day. Every time I was on a book deadline, spaghetti's fine, maybe for a day or two. But every time I was on a deadline, it was like I had to be that disciplined to get that work done. And I don't work that hard anymore. And I have to tell you that every single day I wake up and I am not under those types of deadlines. I am such a grateful woman. I am so
No
grateful.
more spaghetti.
Yeah, no more spaghetti. No. So I think that, the thing of corralling my nature to get a job done and to be able to speak about a subject that I'm so passionate about, those feel like the two real accomplishments for my life.
Wonderful. Thank you. Very, as we might say, very metal time of your life. You had to pull that up and out there.
Sure
Um,
did. Yes.
well, before we wind up, is there anything else that you'd like to say to, students about your school? Anything else?
Well,
Mm.
comes up for me is one of the things that Essential Feng Shui is dedicated to is being very relational with ourselves and with our clients, and applying feng shui principles in a very individualistic way. So there's no rules, hard, fast rules. There are many potential guidelines. And that is, to me, is key, that people are met, each client is met in his or her own particular and very individual life, what part of their life they're in, what kind of things they're trying to accomplish, what are their issues and their challenges. Every single person is unique. And that is what keeps feng shui for me exceptionally interesting is there are no two of us alike. Therefore, there's no two ways to apply feng shui that are exactly alike. So we become like artists, really, and our skill sets are like our paints or, how we help people to color their world in a way that really creates happiness and harmony for them.
Yes. Beautiful. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
My
Um,
pleasure.
much thanks from IFSG.
Thank